and you don't get to see the sun for weeks. So if that is a deal breaker for you, and if you can live without seeing the sun for weeks, then welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you're doing absolutely fine wherever you are. You must have seen already, today's video is going to be about Toronto versus Vancouver. So if you're planning to move to one of these cities, stay tuned till the end. We will take into account things like cost of living, job opportunities, salary, weather, diversity, and at the end will be my own personal opinion. So stay tuned. All these things combined, I think, will help you choose the city that's one for you. So पहले जानते हैं a bit about Vancouver. Vancouver is also known as the Hollywood of the North, and ये पड़ता है British Columbia province में, which is in the west coast of Canada. And why I'm mentioning the west coast, that we will discuss in the weather section. तो अब बात करते हैं टोरंटो की, which is the largest city in Canada and also the capital of province Ontario. अब आपको लगेगा वैंकूवर ही ब्रिटिश कोलंबिया की कैपिटल होगी शायद, which is not the case actually. That is because Victoria is the capital of British Columbia. उसकी एक अलग स्टोरी है, वो कभी और बात करेंगे. So back to Toronto. Toronto has actually 4 times the population of Vancouver and 6 times the size of Vancouver in area. तो ये तो होगी geographical comparison. Now let's get into the first comparison between the two cities, that is the cost of living. So rent being the major spending from our salary, let's take in consideration what data suggests. So if you're looking at apartment of 1 bedroom in the city center, in Vancouver it costs $2,300, and in Toronto it actually costs less. It costs around $2,200. The dollars we're talking about actually are Canadian dollars, not the US one. चलो अब चलते हैं थोड़ा city center से दूर. If we take an apartment 1 bedroom one outside the city, what's the situation in Vancouver and Toronto? In Vancouver it costs around $1,750, whereas in Toronto it's actually more. It's $1,850, which is $100 more in Toronto. So don't you worry, for students it's not the rent that you have to pay. You can always split the money between 2 to 3 students if you do the sharing of the apartment. चलो भाई, rent तो खत्म हुआ. Now let's move to the transportation side. Assuming the newcomer will be using public transport, we have taken in account. So in Vancouver it costs around $120 to use the whole network of public transportation, and in Toronto it costs around $156 monthly. So यहाँ Vancouver is a bit cheaper, and I would say a bit better as well as compared to the Toronto transportation system. Lastly, the major part of cost of living will be the grocery. So in Vancouver it is actually 8.75% higher prices of groceries that you have to pay according to the data as compared to the Toronto. But again, in student life it should not matter much, but if you have a family, it will do matter. So Vancouver is expensive when it comes to groceries as compared to Toronto. Let's move on to our second comparison, that is job opportunities. If you're coming as a student, none of these cities would be a problem for you in finding a job. But for future perspective, and if you're planning to stay in the province for a longer period of time, then you should know these things. For Vancouver, the key industries are tourism, aquaculture, agriculture, forestry, and film industry, of course. And if you're interested, here's a list of the Vancouver's top employers. Now let's get to Toronto, which is the economy hub of Canada, as well as headquarters of 5 largest bank is in Toronto. So if you're looking into financial services, this is one would be the best city in Canada. The key industry in Toronto is aerospace, financial services, retail and wholesale trade, filming, fashion, and many more. And here's a list for Toronto's top employers if you are interested in it. So now let's move on to the third category, which is salaries. So the comparison between Toronto and Vancouver, how much salary you can make in any year after tax deduction. So according to the data, in the year 2021 to 22, after tax deduction, people made an average of $4,800 in Vancouver, whereas in Toronto it was around $5,600. But what if you're working on a minimum wage as a student or as a newcomer? So the minimum wage per hour in Vancouver is $15.65, and in Toronto it is $15 per hour, but it will increase to $15.50 by the October 2022. Now the fourth comparison and a deal breaker for some people, the weather section. So in this section we will be covering how much rainfall a city gets, how much sunshine does it get, how much snowfall does it get, and what's the average temperature in winter of Vancouver and Toronto. Did you know Vancouver is the 4th rainy city in the whole Canada after Abbotsford, St. John's and Halifax? On an average, it rains 168 days a year in Vancouver, whereas in Toronto, it only receives 139 days of rainfall. As you have guessed, according to the rainfall that Vancouver receives, the sunshine is not in the good categories. So Vancouver receives an average of 1938 hours of sun in the whole year, whereas Toronto receives a 2066 hours of sunshine in a year. And if you like snowfall, then you should go for the Toronto city because it receives 41 days of snowfall in the whole year, whereas Vancouver only receives 7 to 8 days of snowfall throughout the year. Now let's talk about the average temperature it gets between the month of December to February in Vancouver and Toronto. So if you're looking for a bit warmer place, Vancouver should be the one for you because the average temperature of Vancouver is only 1.3 degrees Celsius as compared to minus 3.6 in Toronto between the month of December to February. So Toronto is way colder than Vancouver in winters. Do you remember in the beginning of the video, I mentioned Vancouver being in the west coast of Canada. So what does it mean when it comes to weather? Actually, being in the west coast of Canada, the Vancouver becomes kind of a coastal region of the country, and it receives more rainfall, but due to the rainfall the temperature doesn't go as low as in other parts of Canada, and that's why you see less snow but less sunshine and more rainfall throughout the year. Now let's go to our fifth comparison, that is the diversity in the city of Vancouver and Toronto. So not just from Vancouver, Toronto is actually more diverse city from any other city in Canada. Did you know only half of its population was born in Canada? So more than 50% of its population are born outside Canada, and which makes a huge difference when it comes for a newcomer to get comfortable. Also, Toronto is so multicultural, it has 140 different languages spoken in the city. But don't you worry if you're Indian, because you can always find the Indian community whether you're living in Vancouver or Toronto. For Vancouver, it will be the Surrey city, which is closer to Vancouver. And for Toronto, I think you must have heard it's Brampton, the hub of Indian community. Just a request, if you're liking the video so far, please don't forget to hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel. So we are in the last section of the video. That is my own personal opinion in which city I think you should choose to go for. So if you're a student and if you're having trouble in deciding which city would be better for you, I think you should look for the key industries that the city leads in and design or choose a program that suits. For example, if you're into banking, then Toronto would be a better option for you. Whereas if you're, for example, into photography and filming, then Vancouver would be a better option for you guys. The second criteria what you should consider is the weather. Actually, Vancouver is more warmer than Toronto, but on the other side, it's more rainy as well. And you don't get to see the sun for weeks. So if that is a deal breaker for you, and if you can live without seeing the sun for weeks, then Vancouver is fine. But on the other side, Toronto is way more colder than Vancouver, but it receives more sunshine. So that's what you should think about. Do you like sunshine more, or do you like more warmer weather? So that should be the criteria for you. What I like about Vancouver is the beauty of nature it provides. You have mountains, you have beaches, you have forest, but on the other side, it is really wet, and it's a deal breaker for me. I like the weather of Toronto more, and also it is more diverse. So you will find more options to mingle with people, and you will have a better exposure of the different communities in Toronto as compared to Vancouver. I'm not saying Vancouver is not diverse, but the people you meet in Vancouver are not as friendly as the people you meet in Toronto. Also, Toronto has more options of programs if you're coming as a student as compared to Vancouver. Again, you have to compare all the factors and align them what matters to you the most. I hope this video will help you make the decision that's best for you. And please hit the like button again if you really like the video, and share it with your friends, as that's what Google algorithm likes to. Thank you, and see you in the next video.